he, not unreasonably, hoped to recoup his outlay when he sold out. No one wanted negative equity. Besides, there were always ways for an able but impecunious officer to advance. Free promotions in the field following the death of his senior, or in reward for some outstanding service, or the system of brevets, and acting in local rank. However, the army was getting smaller, and actual command, as opposed to appointments on the staff, was going to the men with large fortunes. At least in the Guards, the cavalry, and some of the better favoured infantry regiments of the line. Competition for command of the 40-something foot on a yellow-fevered island in the West Indies was not so intense. So it all sorted itself out in the end, more or less. But how was the British Army to be sure of having capable generals if all that was needed to rise to command of a regiment was deep pockets and aristocratic connections? Thomas Brudnell, Lord Cardigan, was the most infamous example of the mess into which the army was getting itself during the decades after Waterloo. But there were other contenders for that dubious distinction. Brudnell does not feature in the pages of this latest chronicle of the life of Major, Acting Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Hervey, but the man who ordered him to charge at Balaclava, his brother-in-law Lord Bingham, later Earl of Lucan, is remarked on. Bingham had joined the army after Waterloo, straight from school. But before buying command of the 17th Lancers for a record sum, and before he was 30, he had seen no active service. Indeed, he had spent remarkably little time at actual duty. After command of the 17th, Bingham went on to half pay. Another anomaly of the purchase system, whereby a man could retire from active soldiering, but if he had the right connections could continue to be promoted. Between 1837 and 1854, Bingham went from lieutenant colonel to lieutenant general, 4 ranks higher, without so much as attending a field day. Today's national curriculum, with its stress on empathizing in the study of history, would no doubt phrase the exam question thus: how would you feel, as a veteran of real fighting, to have men promoted over you merely because they had money? And doubtless there would be an A star for the candidate who wrote of how wretched he would feel, the victim of aristocratic oppression, but that he could do nothing for fear of the lash or whatever it was that officers were punished with. But the sort of student who gained a top grade in the old O-levels would write something along the lines of, "But there again, the Duke of Wellington's rise had not been so very different from the Earl of Lucan's." It is 1828, and Matthew Hervey is 37. He is Major, second in command, of the Sixth Light Dragoons, though still nominally in command of a troop on detachment to the Cape Colony. And he has acting lieutenant colonel's rank for command of the recently raised Cape Mounted Rifles. He has just made a textbook marriage, and his old friend and mentor, Daniel Coates, has left him a deal of money with which to advance himself. He is at a crossroads, a watershed, a pivot point, whichever is the most appropriate word for that magic number 37, which even in today's army is still the age at which a man's career is best sounded. Matthew Hervey has come a long way since that day in 1808, when the second son of the Horningsham parsonage, straight from Shrewsbury School, joined his regiment. Like Cromwell, he carried with him his prayer book on campaign. Although unlike Cromwell, his religion was never militant, rather that of the clean young Englishman. Now, in this 10th instalment of the Hervey Chronicles, the prayer book is altogether less well thumbed, though the sabre is no less bloody. Part 1. Ex Africa.